arguably the most evil event in human history. It's also perhaps the most studied. The history of the Holocaust bears witness to the depths of man's inhumanity and offers lessons about man's responsibility. The best historical resources about the Holocaust are living witnesses. We're both privileged and honored to have a few minutes this morning to have the opportunity to listen to the story of one of those witnesses and to learn from his insight. The young man is responsible for making this event happen for Norris, and who will introduce our special guest is a Norris graduate. Wilcox graduated from Norris High School in 2011. He completed his bachelor's degree at UNL in 2015 with a major in political science and a minor in communication studies. He was then admitted to Georgetown University's Law Center, but took a leave of absence for a semester and returned to work on his law degree this fall. He took the leave of absence because he and his fiancée had a baby. Oh, it's also his birthday today. So we need to say both congratulations and happy birthday to Will. Well, I'm now asked to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Gandy. Hello. So today I'm here to introduce Milton Kleinberg. For those of you who don't know, he's the owner and CEO of Senior Market Sales, or SMS, which is a successful insurance brokerage company that is both national and international, and employs nearly 200 people in the Omaha area, more than 12,000 licensed insurance agents across the nation. Milt is also a prominent philanthropist who donates to many causes such as the Salvation Army, the Institute for Holocaust Education, and many other Omaha charities. Now, before coming here today, some of you might have heard of Milt or maybe done some research on your own. But for those who haven't, you should know that Milt is a man with an amazing story. And considering that extremist groups such as ISIS are committing a genocide today, Milt's story is now more relevant than ever. Now, despite being born in one of the worst times in history, Milt was able to survive thanks to great sacrifices by his mother. And despite coming to America at the age of 14 without knowing a word of English, he was able to finish high school, attend college, served in Korea, hosted his own radio show, and even organized his community to pressure neo-Nazis out of his hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All before becoming a successful businessman here in Omaha. Now, originally, Milt did not write down a story or share it for several decades. In fact, he only began to write it down after some of his grandchildren visiting concentration camps in Poland began to ask questions. Now, initially, he didn't think this story would be of interest to anyone besides his children and grandchildren. However, upon his family insistence, Milt decided to get published, and in August of 2014, Better Death was released. It is now my great privilege to introduce to you Milton Kleinberg.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to hear a response. A good response. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's more like it. In Omaha, when we have meetings, we want everybody to respond. That way I know that the eyes are open at least through that time, and you were listening. Okay, let me get this organized here. Will was right about one thing, and that is history is repeating itself. And people who don't learn from history have, I think it was can't remember who said it, but if you don't learn from history, history will repeat itself. And it's repeating itself right now. In the Middle East and Africa, radical Islam, I'm not talking about all Muslims, so radical Islam is creating genocide out there. There's another Holocaust going on there, which is against Christians and other minorities. And finally, our government has realized that there really is a genocide going on there. And the similarity between the Jews in World War II and this genocide is striking. These Islamists, as they are called, are the true new Nazis. And Nazism has even grown in Europe. There's elections going on where Nazis have managed to win the elections. So it's very, very important that you understand that Nazism, radical Islam, that's evil, pure, true evil. And the one thing in the world you have to do is be able to recognize evil. Once you recognize evil, you have an obligation to do something about it. It doesn't have to be big or anything small, because evil can only flourish when good people do nothing about it. And I hope to incite you all to be good people. Now here's my story. Obviously I have written a book here called Bread or Death, and in that story, it's a long story, and I'm just going to give you a little excerpt from the book. I was born Mendel Dawidowicz in Pabianic, Poland on January 28, 1937. My God, that's a long time ago. It was absolutely the worst of all times, and the worst of all places to be born to Jewish parents. Hitler, which was the Chancellor of Germany, was renting and making propaganda against the Jews. He was also getting ready to invade Europe. On September 1, 1939, the Germans invaded Poland from the west, and 17 days later, the Russian allies invaded from the east, dividing the country between them at the River Bug. That was the demarcation line. 8 days after the invasion of Poland, the German army was in Pabianic, where they were marching down the cobblestone streets of our city. The war lasted a total of 2,776 days. In that short time, of the 3,300,000 Polish Jews that were alive then, only 10% survived. 90% of all Polish Jews perished. And we were one of the few that managed to survive. When the Germans came into town, they immediately began repressive measures against the Jewish population. They destroyed the synagogue on the Jewish New Year, and then they turned it into a barn. And then, of course, they annexed West Poland to Germany. So now we were part of Germany, and they called it Wetherland. One of the edicts made it clear that no Jews will be permitted to live in any German territory, which meant forced deportation. On a cold December morning, German troops surrounded our street, Kościelna ulica, and forcibly evicted us with bayonets. We had less than an hour to grab what we could carry, and we were thrown into the street. In the street, we were lined up, four abreast, and they marched us down through the center of town to the train station. Waiting for us at the train station was a locomotive attached to about 15 to 20 cattle cars. The smell from the cattle cars was horrendous. It seemed that the cattle were just unloaded and we were taking their place. Then the Germans herded us into these smelly boxcars, so tight that there was barely enough room to turn around. After 36 hours on the train stopped in a city called Ulica, and we were ordered out. The cold air hit us like a slap in the face. And it was almost invigorating, because just to get out of those tight spots on the train. us up again and marched us down to the Jewish section of town. There was a burned out synagogue. And the synagogue, it was still smoldering a little bit. The smell of flesh was heavy in the air, and they ordered us in. Most of us were reluctant to go in, fearful that once inside, they would torch the synagogue again. But the German soldier said there's bread and water inside, and it won't be there very long. So we overcame our fears and went inside. Once inside, we found space next to some of our relatives that were deported with us. The synagogue was a mess of confusion. Nobody knew what was going on. I was about 4 at that time, and I had my brother Herschel, who was about a year younger. We were looking around, and we saw an elderly man. There are a lot of incidents, but I'm just going to pick a few that make sense. We saw an elderly man with a wide beard, having a Jewish prayer shawl around him, carrying a prayer book, and talking out loud to an invisible person. Most of the people in the synagogue just ignored him, fearing, knowing actually that his wife and son died in the synagogue in the fire, so they thought that he lost his mind. And but my brother Herschel and I went up to him and asked him who he was talking to. He looked at us with the saddest eyes I ever saw and said, "The angel of death." But he says, "You won't see him. Only I can see him." For 2 days, we watched this tortured man running around the burned out bima or altar, arguing with the angel of death. On the 3rd day, he came over, handed his belongings, some of his belongings to Mother, and Father he gave some money. He looked at us and with a resolute voice told them, as he put his hand on my shoulder, "You must go across the river Bug to the Russian side. There's some life and hope, but here there's absolutely none." I don't recall this man ever telling us his name, but in my dreams I see him, and he calls himself Abraham. My parents took Abraham's warning to heart, and they found a Polish guard who had an old, dilapidated, flat-bottomed boat whom they bribed to take us across the river to the Russian side. On the Russian side, we got arrested by the secret police, the NKVD, which later became the KGB, and shortly afterwards, they deported us to a Polish holding camp or prison. In that prison, there were Poles of all nationalities, including Jews. We were all earmarked for deportation deep into the Soviet Union labor camps, slave labor camps. It wasn't until, I think, in February of 1940 that they loaded us into boxcars. It's a little bit bigger than the cattle cars. And in the boxcars, the train took us to a city called Arkhangelsk, which is the northern, it's north, but it's the most eastern part of European Russia. It's next to the Finnish border. Arkhangelsk was a lumber town with little wooden houses and wooden sidewalks. we lived in that town together as a family in a little house. It was where my brother Variable was born. We lived there for over a year. It's a Holocaust, which means a collective farm. Everybody had to work, and the Russians didn't even bother to guard us, because after all, we were in the middle of nowhere. Finland was about 100 miles down the road, and we didn't know where it was. So nobody was trying to escape, and they weren't too concerned about it. Arkhangelsk was one of those places very difficult to describe. It was 6 months, it was cold and dark, and other 6 months it was hot and flies and all kinds of varmint that I never know. But it was a place that we almost got used to. And then in 1941, the Germans attacked the Soviet Union across a 1,000-mile border, and the war caught up with us. There's a lot of history if you want to read about the German attack. It was called Barbarossa. Read about that. And we were ordered to get ready for resettlement. We didn't know exactly where, but they were resettling people deep into Siberia or Central Asia. This time, there was 5 of us going together on the journey. We were earmarked for Samarkand, Uzbekistan, which is located in Central Asia. There were about 35 people in a boxcar. There were women, children, even grandparents. We all were traveling together by train. The journey to Samarkand, Uzbekistan, is 4,700 miles. It's a long road. Generally by train on the Trans-Siberian rail line, it would take, in normal conditions, normal times would take about 2 to 3 weeks. But this is a normal time. We were traveling in the heat of battle, which meant the journey was extended to 3 horrific months. It was a very, very long trip. At one stop, Firth between Novosibirsk and Omsk, the train stopped, and my father got off. And never came back. Before we went on the train, my father's responsibility was to get off the train and barter for food at train stops to supplement. We were giving passports marked O and ration cards, and the ration cards entitled a person to 550 grams of bread. It was barely enough to keep body and soul together, but you did. Without that bread, that was a certainty. That's why we call it bread, or that. He got off the train there and never came back. That meant that the 5 of us, my mother, nursing Variable, which was the name of my younger brother, I was responsible for my brother Herschel, and father was also responsible for gathering the food. So all of a sudden we were left stranded on the train, dependent on our neighbors, who themselves barely had enough food to spare for themselves. And the Russians would not issue us cards, fearing that we were trying to game the system and then we lost the cards, the ration cards. It was a long journey when the father got off. But the worst thing of it all, he took with him our passports, our money, and those life-saving ration cards, without which we were just completely dependent on our neighbors. One woman, a Polish woman in our train who befriended Mother, also had very bad luck after she left Poland. Her husband died in our guest. Her younger son, which was a friend of mine, was killed in an accident on the train under the track. Mother helped the woman take care of her baby while she was undergoing tremendous, horrendous depression. So they became friends. Now her last baby died, and she came over to Mother to thank her for her kindness during those black days, as she calls it. She gave Mother her passport and 3 ration cards, and she said, use it so you can, for yourself and the children. The Russians won't be able to tell us apart, but now you have to be me. This woman probably saved our lives. However, it was already too late for my younger brother, Vedel, who died the last day on the train. Then, in fall of 1941, the train stopped, the big sliding door opened up, a tall, blonde Russian officer opened the door and said, "Welcome to Samarkand, the jewel of the Orient." We all stood up and looked at him. He says, "You're not coming back anymore to the train, so take everything you can with you, because from now on you're going to live and work here." Samarkand had 2 commodities, and that is one of the reasons they needed extra labor. The men were generally drafted in the army, and most of the women did the labor, and we were there to replenish the labor pool in Samarkand. Mother's first job was in a cotton gin. What they would do is they would sit on low benches in front of them, balls of cotton, and they had to pick out the seeds from the cotton, separate them. The seeds went for oil, and the cotton went to make what you do with cotton. Anybody here who ever worked on a cotton field knows how difficult it is to get those seeds out of there. She worked in that gin cotton mill for over about close to a year. Then she had a friend who also had a job in a tobacco factory. And the tobacco factory wasn't easier, but the tobacco factory was a product, a good currency to barter with, or to bribe officials. At that time in the Soviet Union, I'm sure it's still true, that barter and bribing is a way of life. What they did, she and her friend Aya developed a little scheme. They stole small quantities of tobacco, shared it with the guard and the manager, and that was a currency that was worth more than money. And in Russia, money didn't have much value. As a matter of fact, if you had money, they called you a capitalist and you wound up in jail. But with tobacco as a barter tool, that was very good. In 1943, my younger brother, Herschel, caught malaria. And in spite of my mother's skills and bartering for medicine and everything, he suffered with it for a month, and then he died. That devastated us, both of us, for a very long time. After Herschel died, Mother and her friend managed to get me into a children's home. which was located, a Polish children's home, which was located on the old Black Road, as they call it. The Black Road is actually remnants of the old Silk Road, and the bandits seem to still be around on that road, so it was very dangerous to get there. In that children's home, I became of age. I made friends with two like-minded boys, Fyodor and Edmund, and the three of us set up a clubhouse in back of the outhouse, where we schemed how to raid the orchard across the street from the children's home and the vegetable garden about a mile down the Black Road. A lot of things happened in that period of time, but I don't think we have the time, so I'll just pick out a couple incidents that might be of interest to you. Of course, you're going to have to get the book if you really want to read the whole story. At any rate, one evening, we were hiding in the bushes next to the vegetable garden, waiting for the field workers to leave. The last two workers was a Russian and an Uzbek, and they got into an argument. The Uzbek pulled his curved knife and cut the Russian. The Russian grabbed a switchblade out of his pocket and repeatedly stabbed the Uzbek until he fell to the ground dead. We were going to take off, at least my friends would. I said, I'm not going, I'm going to find that knife. So, as the Russian was running, he threw away the knife, which was not too far from where we were hiding. I cleaned off the knife and put it in my pocket. And that night was a lifesaver on several occasions. One such occasion is we were walking in the Black Road, horse-drawn wagon with apples went by. Some of the apples fell off the cart into the ditch. We jumped, the three of us jumped into the ditch. We stopped our shoes with apple, got back on the Black Road. We were going to head back to the children's home. And all of a sudden we see on his back, riding on a donkey, swearing in Russian and in Uzbek, weaving from side to side, barely holding on. The odd thing about it, I could understand the swearing in both languages. He was back, dismounted, came over and grabbed my shirt, tore it open, the apples fell to the ground, and then in his native tongue he said, I will teach you kids to be thieves. And then he grabbed also a curved knife. He took a swing at me, at my throat. I jumped back, and he missed my throat, but he got me in the right armpit. Then my friend Fyodor, who always had a walking stick with him, grabbed the other side of the walking stick, hit the Uzbek over the head. The Uzbek went down on his knees. He dropped the knife. As the Uzbek was reaching for the knife, the adrenaline kicked in. I grabbed the switchblade out of my pocket and stabbed the Uzbek in the throat. When the Uzbek was reaching for the knife again, I stabbed him twice. And somehow he managed to pick up his knife, get on the donkey, and the donkey with the human cargo on his back went down the Black Road and stopped at the gate of the orchard. Then he was back, slid down the donkey, fell down and died. There were several other occasions. Our friend Edmund was abducted, kidnapped by a soldier, and the two of us decided to rescue him. We also had, one time I grabbed some peaches from a moving wagon and was running away, and someone shot. I thought they were just trying to scare me, which worked. but I realized later on that I was shot in the right knee. There are several other very interesting incidents that happened in that children's home. The war ended in May of 1945. The children's home and all the staff and everywhere were all sent together by train to Breslau, Poland, to another children's home. Then in Breslau in the Breslau Children's Home is where my friend Piotr was reunited with his wounded father. Edmund was reunited with his mother, who was released from a concentration camp. And wouldn't you believe it, I was reunited with Michael. There he was standing smiling when he saw me. There was one little hitch though. By then he already had a wife and 2 children. And my mother was going to come to Breslau 2 weeks later to a very big surprise. The city of Pavinic, where we lived before the war, was a Jewish community that goes back 1,000 years. When we came back, there wasn't one recognizable Jewish face in the whole city. The peddlers, the smells, the songs, the voices, it was all gone. The signs that were in the windows, the Yiddish signs that were in the windows, it was all gone. We were in shock and disbelief. Everything was swept clean as though we never existed. And to add insult to injury, our Polish neighbors made it clear that there's no room in this new Poland for Jews. So as Jews have done hundreds of times before, we packed what was left of our shattered lives and we moved on. In Breslau, my mother was sitting on a bench in front of the synagogue. All the synagogues were destroyed except one. And they had a bulletin board there where people would come and looking for other people to see who survived. And they had a big couple benches and people were sitting there. She was sitting there despondent. The rabbi gave her some papers because she wanted to get a divorce so she could spend with her life. But she couldn't read or write. So I was very despondent. Next to her sat down Aaron Kleinberg, which became my father. And he said, "Can I help you?" And she definitely helped. We needed to help. After a while, they hit it off and they decided to make plans for the future. Aaron's had a brother in Belgium who had a restaurant. So the plan was to make our way to Belgium to get together with him because we needed papers and we didn't have anything. So the Jewish agency says, go to Germany, become a displaced person there, you'll have papers and you'll be able to move about. And Poland wouldn't let anybody out, so they helped us to get out there. We ended up in Germany, and we were in 5 different VP camps, displaced persons camp there. In one place called Wasseralpingen, my mother married Aaron Kleinberg, and my sister Bessie and Goldie were born. We made one attempt to go escape Germany and go into Holland, and from Holland we were going to go to Belgium, but we got caught and sent back to Germany. My father spent 90 days in jail there. By the way, the same prison where Hitler wrote this awful book, Mein Kampf. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but if you have, you know, he spelled out in specific detail what they planned to do to the Jews. And in 1945, 51, they were liquidating the displaced persons camps. And in the city of Bremerhaven, we were given passes on the ship General R.M. Bletchford. I guess he was a Civil War hero, and to me he is a hero all the way. We got on the ship and we came to America in New York Harbor on May 1, 1951, May 14, 1951. From New York City, we caught a train, and from there we went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and to a happy life there. How much time do I have? Time?
30 minutes. You're fine.
Oh, I'm fine? Okay. From Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I went to high school. Of course, I couldn't read or write, and I never went to school in Europe. So when I went to high school, we arrived in New York Harbor on May 14th, and by September I had to get ready for high school. Between that time, first months, and the Jewish Agency organized a teacher. It was a Polish principal, spoke Polish, that was supposed to get us ready for high school. Of course, she told me that you're going to have a hard time, because I knew a lot of things about nothing that's important. So she said, you got a long ways to go. She says, I generally don't advise kids to lie, but I would tell you to lie for the first time, she said. She says, if you go into school and tell them that you never finished grade school, they will put you in first or second grade, and you're not going to last long, because I was 14 years old at that time. But say to them that you finished grade school and you were getting ready for high school. At least on your papers, you will have that you went to grade school, which will help you in later life. I thought it was very good advice. So I started high school, Lincoln High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. To be honest about it, the first year everyone was very kind to me. The advantage I had, and some of you will probably appreciate it, I was good at sports. And once they saw that I could do sports, made an extra effort to help me. So the first year, they passed me a sure kindness. Second year, I was in the D class. By the third year, I was a C plus student and graduated high school as a B student. From high school, I joined the Army. I took a tour in Korea. When I came home, an honorable discharge. As a matter of fact, while I was in the Army, I took college classes. They had on the basis that you can sign for a college campus. So it gave me a little bit of a leg up. I came back, went to college, worked, and married my wife. We married. And I started the insurance business in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. From Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I had an opportunity to come to Omaha, and a couple people had an agency which they needed some help with, and they invited me to manage their agency. And later on, I bought the agency. And now I'm the owner of a very large insurance operation that markets products throughout the country. I love America. I want to make sure that I get that in. I became a patriot American patriot when I saw the Statue of Liberty. And I've been so ever since, unabashedly proud of it. In America, you can all be whatever you want to be. Nobody has to be a victim. I talk to a lot of kids and they all tell me they're a victim because of parents, or because of this, or because of that. You don't have to be what your parents were. You can be better than that. You don't have to be a victim for anything. You can make your own path and you can have the greatest future. It is very simple. You just have to do the basic. You can do, I think it was in high school that I learned, it was a triathlon, one of the triathlon in the Olympics said to us, which I caught and I kept in my head. It says, the only difference between you and me or other professional sports players is you haven't put in any time yet in it. He says, I put in 10,000 hours. And when you put in 10,000 hours, it can be as good as me or even better. And that stuck with me. And it was just a question of if you consider yourself a victim or you consider yourself a doer. The world belongs to the doers. And to be a doer, we all know what you have to do. You got to get a good education. You got to do what is necessary. And in our business, we have a slogan that we give everybody a little plate on that says, successful people do those things that failures refuse to do. And when you think about it, about life, if someone isn't successful, not because they can't be, because they just refuse to do the things that other people don't mind doing or want to do. So, America is the land of opportunity, and it's not by accident that people from all over the world come here. I don't know any other country, any socialist country, or any other place where people are going to. They usually come from there. It's not paradise for everybody, but those that do, and those that persevere,